For 17 straight days, a city of 500,000 people burned. Not a battle, not a siege assault. A city, burning, with nothing left to fight back. When it was finally over, the Roman general in command didn't celebrate. He stood at the edge of the flames and wept not for the enemies he had just destroyed, but because, as he watched Carthage die, he reportedly quoted a line about how every great empire eventually falls, even his own. This is the story of the only ancient city that a superpower deliberately erased, wiped so thoroughly off the map that, for 100 years afterward, the ground itself sat empty by law, and the man who burned it down while already grieving what it meant. To understand why Rome did this, you have to go back over a century, to a war Carthage had already lost once before. In 218 BC, a Carthaginian general named Hannibal had marched war elephants across the Alps and spent 15 years rampaging through Roman territory, winning battle after battle, killing tens of thousands of Roman citizens along the way. Before Rome finally beat him back on Carthaginian soil itself, Carthage survived that war barely. It paid a crushing tribute spread out over 50 years, gave up its entire war fleet, surrendered its war elephants, and promised never to rearm without Roman permission ever again. For an entire generation of Romans, the trauma of that war never fully faded. Hannibal had come close enough to Rome itself that survivors could still remember exactly how it felt to believe their own city might fall. For the next 50 years, Carthage did something almost stranger than fighting. It rebuilt, not armies, markets, trade routes, wealth. By the 150s BC, Carthaginian merchants were once again among the richest in the Mediterranean. And Carthage itself had grown prosperous enough that Roman senators visiting on diplomatic missions came home unsettled by what they saw. One senator in particular could not let it go. His name was Cato the Elder, and after one visit, he became obsessed with a single idea, that a wealthy Carthage, even a disarmed one, was a threat Rome could never fully relax around. He began ending every speech he gave in the Senate on completely unrelated topics: taxes, roads, anything with the same three words: Carthage must be destroyed. He said it so many times that it stopped sounding like an opinion and started sounding like policy. Other senators reportedly mocked him for it at first until, year after year, the phrase stopped getting laughs and started getting nods instead. So, when Carthage, in violation of its old treaty, finally raised an army to fight off a neighboring tribal kingdom that kept raiding its territory, a purely defensive war, fought without Roman permission, Rome had the excuse it had been waiting 50 years for. In 149 BC, Rome declared war for a third time. But this time, Carthage tried something almost unthinkable: surrender, immediately, completely. Before a single battle was fought, Carthaginian envoys handed over 300 hostage children. They handed over their entire stockpile of weapons by some accounts, enough to arm tens of thousands of soldiers. Rome took the weapons, then delivered one final demand: abandon the city itself and rebuild 10 miles inland, away from the sea that had made Carthage rich in the first place. For a trading city, that wasn't a peace offer. It was a death sentence with extra paperwork. So Carthage, disarmed, surrounded, and with no weapons left to fight with, did the only thing left available to it. It refused and began forging new weapons out of anything it could melt down, including, according to ancient sources, repurposing temple treasures and even women's jewelry into spearheads. The siege that followed lasted 3 years. Carthage's triple defensive walls, among the most advanced in the ancient Mediterranean, wide enough for chariots to pass each other on top, turned the first 2 years into a humiliating stalemate for Rome. Disease spread through the Roman camp outside the walls. Supply lines failed. More than one Roman commander was recalled to the Senate in disgrace after failing to make any real progress against a city that, on paper, had already surrendered its entire army. Inside the walls, the population melted down everything it could find: temple, gold, household, bronze. By some ancient accounts, even women voluntarily cut their own hair to be twisted into bowstrings because there was no rope left to spare. Rome's army outside the walls grew restless and demoralized, struggling against defenders who had nothing left to lose. It took the arrival of a new commander, the adopted grandson of the general who had once defeated Hannibal, to finally turn the siege around. His name was Scipio Aemilianus, and unlike most Roman commanders sent to finish off an already doomed enemy, he seemed to understand exactly what he was about to become part of. In the spring of 146 BC, Roman soldiers finally breached the outer walls. What followed wasn't really a battle. It was room to room, street to street fighting through a city packed with civilians who had nowhere left to retreat to. Roman soldiers reportedly had to fight through the upper floors of multi-story houses, sometimes laying makeshift planks between rooftops just to keep advancing without dropping back down into the chaos of the streets below. The fighting for the residential districts alone took 6 days without pause. Survivors were pushed back toward the central citadel and the Temple of Eshmoun on the highest point of the city, where the last Carthaginian commander, a man named Hasdrubal, held out with whatever forces remained. Hasdrubal eventually surrendered and begged for his life. He got it. His own wife reportedly did not extend him the same mercy in return, choosing to die in the burning temple behind him rather than watch him beg. By the time the fires finally burned out after 17 days, the city's population, once perhaps 500,000 strong, had been killed, enslaved, or scattered. The Roman Senate ordered the physical site itself cursed, so that nothing could ever be rebuilt there again. Here's the detail most people get wrong. Ancient sources never actually claim Rome salted the earth in any literal agricultural sense. That part is a much later legend. What Rome actually did was arguably colder, a formal religious curse, a deliberate erasure from the map, and 100 years of silence before anyone tried building there again. And Scipio, the man who made it happen, is recorded by ancient historians standing at the wall that night, already speaking as if his own city's downfall was just a matter of time. He wasn't wrong to worry. Within a century, Rome's own republic would tear itself apart in civil war after civil war, proving that the empire capable of erasing an entire rival civilization from the map could not, in the end, protect itself from the exact same fate. For the next 100 years, the site of Carthage sat deliberately empty, a wound Rome had chosen to keep open as a warning to anyone else who might grow rich enough to feel safe. It wasn't until the time of Julius Caesar, and later Augustus, that Rome finally reversed its own curse and rebuilt a Roman colony directly on top of the ashes, eventually growing it into one of the wealthiest cities in the entire empire. Proof that even the land Rome had tried hardest to erase could not stay erased forever. Carthage didn't lose because it was weak. It lost because it had already been disarmed, isolated, and cursed before the first Roman soldier ever crossed its walls, destroyed less by a battle than by 50 years of a single senator's refusal to let an old enemy simply exist. If a story like this is new to you, there's a lot more ancient history most people never learn in school. Make sure you're subscribed for the next one.